Welcome to Midnight Menu Plus One. I'm Ray Canada.
And I'm Margot Moss.
It is midnight at Ted's Frost Top on Claiborne and Calhoun in Uptown, New Orleans. Once a week, Margot and I meet here at Ted's, and we invite a member of New Orleans' restaurant community to join us. And we invite them to bring along a friend, a plus one. Now, we never know who that plus one's going to be, but we're looking forward to finding out along with you. But we do know who our special guest is tonight. We are very excited to have with us today none other than the unique New Orleans original, Steve Watson. Steve Watson is rumored to be a personal friend of NFL great Johnny Unitas' family. Not only that, he is also a National Hockey League insider. Not only that, he's also a bona fide ex-rock star. But all those things pale in comparison to his greatest achievement, and that is the contribution he's made for many years now to the bar and restaurant scene in New Orleans. He is none other than the co-founder and co-owner, continues to run Kingpin, one of the great bars in our city, right here in Uptown. Not only that, but he's also, more recently, developed Midway Pizza, which he co-owns and runs there every day. Midway Pizza has been literally a pioneer in pan pizza in our city. And it's been not only a popular, but also a critical success. I'm so excited to have Steve here. I can't wait to hear from him. But first, a few other things. I wanted to ask you, Margot, we have someone else with us today. You brought Meatball here to cook the food for us. Ted's got a great menu, but he's going to be supplementing that tonight as well for us here. Can you tell us a little bit about who Meatball is and what's he offering?
Well, Meatball is a great guy. He moved to New Orleans from Connecticut a while back, and his first job was at Giacomo's when Austin Leslie was there.
Wow.
And he moved on to Commander's, and currently he works at Cowbell.
Well, I love Cowbell so much.
Yeah, we're really excited. He came up with a special menu just for
our show.
For our show, Ted's Midnight Menu.
Wow, what are some of the things he's cooking up for us tonight?
He's making a spicy grilled pork chop with a Ted's Frost Top root beer glaze.
Oh, come on. Wow.
Dirty rice and some homemade applesauce. He's also got a pizza burger.
Oh, that's appropriate with Steve here.
Yes, a pizza burger on a grilled brioche with house-made fries, provolone, and homemade marinara sauce.
Oh, man. That's going to... Okay, can I have all those things?
Yeah.
How long's the show? We got an hour? I can eat 2 or 3 of those.
Save room, though. He's got a fried dough dessert, savory or sweet, a pizza-style dough with marinara and provolone, or a cinnamon sugar dough. So,
well, it's technically the next day now. We're into the next day, so I can call this breakfast, right? Wow, okay. You hungry yet? What'd you have to eat this weekend, Margot? Did you go anywhere interesting?
I did not go out anywhere. I didn't...
looks like Steve's here. Okay, we'll have him on in just a moment.
Yeah. I cooked at home a lot this week.
What'd you have?
I went to Emmett's. It's a butcher.
Oh, nice. Where's that?
On Jefferson Highway.
All right.
And... we had stuffed chicken with artichoke, bacon sausage.
Oh, man.
Boudin.
Wow.
My kid even ate crawfish boudin for breakfast one day. I was all about the prepared foods this week. No going out.
Why did you hesitate
but no
to tell me
cooking
that?
from
You looked
scratch.
like you had nothing. I looked in your eye, and I saw this vacancy, and I thought, she didn't do much. She had scrambled eggs or something. Then you come out with that? Why do you have to go out to eat when you eat that at home? That's amazing.
Yeah, you have to check out Emmett's. It's great.
Sounds incredible.
The guy was a butcher at Langenstein's for 30 years.
Oh, I love Langenstein's.
And he just opened up his own spot.
Oh, awesome. All right. Wow, that pales comparison to me. Now I'm embarrassed. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's insulting to where I ate. Of course, I ate out almost every meal. That's what I do. And so this morning, Kathy and I walked to Slim Goodies from my house. And I could justify the big rich omelet because it's about a 5-mile round trip. But I don't know if I burned the calories or not. But I had the Havana, which is incredible, one of the world's great omelets. And my wife had the Americana. I like that as well. What did we have for dinner? We had Rouse's. We had some prepared food from Rouse's. We got barbecued ribs, really good. Just
Oh, I haven't had their ribs.
Oh, they peel right off the bone. Unbelievable. Yeah, just incredible. My kids are both really fussy about their ribs, and they have opposite taste in ribs, but they both like the same ribs at Rouse's, so that's always a nice compromise for us. Okay, well, I think it's time now to talk with our special guest, Steve Watson. We introduced him before. He is the owner of Midway Pizza and of the Kingpin, among many other things. So I have a long list of questions I want to ask you, Steve, but glad to have you here.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. Let's see. How did you get into pizza? I mean, well, first of all, let's see now. You were you were involved in professional athletics. You were a rock star. You were what else? What else were you before you were? Well, of course, you were a bar owner before you were a pizza owner.
Well, I'm trying to top rock star and professional athlete, but that's loose use of the word professional athlete and rock star. However, I was involved playing music for years. And my parents opened this pizza place. My dad used to play hockey. And so
now your dad holds some records, right?
My dad holds some records for the most penalty minutes. He had the world record for penalty minutes I guess when he retired, which would be 1978. So I guess I was probably 10 or 11 years old.
And where was this?
This was we finished up with the Washington Capitals. So my dad started playing hockey when he grew up in Canada, like most of the NHL was. He was a guy that at age 14 moved away from home. He was bought by the Montreal Canadiens.
And why did he move away from home at 14?
Because they would take him. Back in the day, you could be drafted, and that meant you were property of the team, and the team you would go to their farm team.
At 14, he was
14.
drafted?
Parents probably weren't crazy about that, huh?
Parents were probably happy. If you knew my dad, they're probably happy to get rid of him. But no, that's what you had to do back then. So my dad was a pro hockey player. I was born in Pittsburgh when he was playing for the Penguins, and we were laughing about him. Yeah, he's a little guy, real tough guy, and for years he was a big. You'll see this sort of, you can look at the '70s hockey's no helmet. Lots of fighting, slap shot. That was sort of his era. And he was always a big character and lots of fun. And my mom and my sister and I, we would travel with our dad. It was like he got traded a bunch, so we would I lived in St. Louis, Pittsburgh. I made a living off of, I didn't make a living, but he made a living off of getting traded, which meant that I would be in first grade, and we'd be traded somewhere in the middle of the school year. I'd sort of be dumped in this new school, and here's the new kid, and sort of. But it was
what was that like? How many schools did you go to?
Well, I was asked to a lot. It wasn't just him that made me leave schools, unfortunately. But I went to. Before I was in sixth grade, we probably moved to 4 different places, then he retired from the NHL and went to coach. And he coached the Edmonton Oilers, who at that time had Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier.
He coached Wayne Gretzky?
Coached Wayne Gretzky. So
head coach?
He was the head coach. So I lived in Edmonton, and it was Gretzky, Messier.
So it was like a 10-year-old kid, whenever you were a 15-year-old kid, you're hanging out with
Gretzky, yeah.
Golly.
Who was too cool. A nice guy. And Messier was actually for people down here, they may not be as big hockey fans, but when my dad was let go by the Capitals, he went to play in this team, the Cincinnati Stingers, which were in the WHA, and Messier was 17 years old. Huh. And I think my dad was 36 or 37, and he was Messier's roommate. They made him be roommates. So it was like they became great buds. Huh. And to this day, they're still great friends, and it was like, the old man and the young kid, and they've had lots of fun. So that was sort of my upbringing all over the place with my dad.
Wow.
Which didn't really lend itself to pizza, however.
Right. Now, your dad, to really rack up like the most amount of penalties
he had
in the entire history of the NHL, like, got to be an aggressive guy. Now, was he like that at home, too?
He not with us, but he could be. He has a temper, but I don't...
Would he have scored any penalty points at home, too?
Yeah, he could have scored some penalty points. As we've gotten older, he still scores penalty points, so he... Instead of yelling at me, there's been a few wrestling matches, It's like, but he's a great guy and a pretty. The thing that's really neat about him, and it's sort of like what we're doing now at the Midway. He's had this restaurant, which we can go into, but for 30 years, and he's run it like a team, like where he's
right,
and it's a real family. It's you feel the atmosphere or the vibe that he can channel, and it's carried through that restaurant for 30 years.
Did that influence you greatly in your first business and this one as well? I mean,
well, yeah, for sure. What was that's a big influence. What had happened with I guess I bartended at his place and worked in the kitchen and everything. When I moved to New Orleans, I moved over here, and then I had Ike, my son, and I was working at this place, the Bulldog, and I knew that I could do my own thing. I figured, like doing a bar, and I drank a lot, so I had that down. And it was just one of those things where the situation presented itself, and it's like, why don't we try this? And I was talking about my great buddy that's in with the Midway and the Kingpin.
Now, wait, how'd you end up in New Orleans in the first place?
I ended up in New Orleans. I was living in Austin, Texas. I was playing music then.
You were in a band, right?
I was in a band. I was in this band called the Neptunes that...
And they recorded and toured and all that, right? We
recorded and toured, and what it was that we were from D.C., and at that time you could live Austin, Texas. This is in 1988. It was $137 a month, my rent. And we would travel all over the country and play, and we'd always open. We were a pretty good little band, but it was like we were called from Austin, the Neptunes, and it would be we'd play every bar, we'd play. We wouldn't play tips here. We did play tips here, but we'd play like Jimmy's or Carrollton Station, and you'd open up for someone. And it was like at that time the vibe on Austin, which is still today. I mean, but roots rock was really big then, or it was like you could bars could make a living off of booking these bands, and so I did that for years, and it was like free food, free booze. Live in a van, and it was great.
Why would you want to leave that?
Yeah, I didn't want to leave that. That's what happened. But I decided, and I ended on a high note, which I thought. I was playing with this guy named Mojo Nixon, who had this hit, Elvis is Everywhere, and we were doing really well at that, and I was traveling with him, and I decided to go back to college. So I went to Wisconsin, and then I went back down to Austin, resumed my musical career, which took me back to 1988. It wasn't when I finished in 1994. So I was working in the kitchen, and I came over to visit one of my great friends who was in a band here called $1,000 Car. And I guess I was 25 or 27, I think. And I was over here. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. Bars were open. It was Jazz Fest. And I was like, why don't I just move over? I mean, and I didn't know what I know now, but I felt I think I was at the old Miss Mays one night.
Oh, wow.
Which was where St. Joe's is now.
Yeah, right.
And there's some fight over some shit. I can't remember. It was like, it was hilarious. But I was like, why not, And I fell in love with the city then, and it's a relationship that's only gone more since,
So you started working at the Bulldog after that?
Working at the Bulldog because the guy that in the kitchen was a guy who's still there, who created the menu. This guy, Robert Remington. Called Remy, and he's used to make guitar straps in Austin. So we were playing a gig, and he's like, hey, you want to come down and work in the kitchen? I was like, sure, man, like flipping hamburgers. And I shouldn't say this now because our cooks at the Midway don't want to hear this, but it was, $8 an hour plus tips, and it was, 15. It was a great gig. And then I just started bartending. So I started cooking, and then I bartended there, and which was great because I had Ike. Ike's mom is from here, but we met in Austin.
Okay.
Moved over here.
She moved with you?
Well, no, she moved before. She didn't move, and then we became with child on our long-distance relationship. Once again, proving the timing method doesn't work. And and it's been the greatest thing ever, but she moved over, and it was a great gig because I could work. I'd look after Ike in the daytime, and I'd work a couple nights a week. So that was sort of what was going on.
Oh, well, he's in 9th grade now, right?
He is in 9th grade, who has the day off of school tomorrow because of the water boil.
Oh,
he
yes.
just called me.
That was pleasant. Yeah, they told us about
so
that
we can
about
stay
4
late
hours
tonight.
after.
Yeah.
Oh, good, okay.
But yeah, he's in 9th grade.
He's a year older than my son. I know you were my son's football coach. That's how we got to know each other.
And we would laugh. It was me and this friend of mine, Cato, whose girlfriend works at the Kingpin. And Cato's this guy. I played high school football at this little school in D.C. called Murray, and it wasn't very competitive. And Cato was my neighbor, who I'd have to bang on the door once in a while to wake up for practices because he'd been out all night. But he knew more about football. He played in Ruston. He's like, well, let me help you out a little bit. And he would practice with these kids, not wear his shoes, and knew more about football than I. And I sort of pretended I was the head coach, but Cato would call the shots. And we did it, and you'd get these kids that you'd pick, and I lucked out getting Ray's kid, Andrew, and we'd all have nicknames, and it was Canada, and I kept going, ba-ba, Canada, like that song. And I was like, we called him the kid, how do you pronounce your name? We couldn't pronounce it. How do you spell your name? And stuff like that. And, I mean, I think Andrew was maybe 35 pounds, soaking wet. And his mom came up to me, and she said, well, he's not going to, like, I know he loves watching football, and I said he won't be in a situation where he's going to get hurt. I mean, but he was the little safety, and he did great. And it was like, and there were all these little kids, and that's how I met your family, coaching Kyle's the triplets on the baseball team, which was pretty hilarious. So anyway, that's it's great times.
So I saw that you are, I don't know if this is an ongoing thing, but you're in a band, or it has something to do with your son. I saw the Lusher's Dad's Band.
Yes, that was. I'm not doing that anymore.
What is that, though?
Well, what that is, man, I'll tell you what it is. It's really cool. At Lusher, there's a music teacher that sings in the morning. This guy named Mark Hughes, who is fantastic, and he's always up by himself. And the first year I was there, we had in Ike's class there was a couple members of the Iguanas. Cranston Clemens. There was a guy named Hannibal Lacombe, I think, who was the director of the CAC, like the musical director. I'm going to mispronounce some of these guys' names. Adam, what's Amisty's name? You know, the guy that plays piano with Neville? Amity, white guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was a bunch of these dads were there. And I was with Derek Hughes, and I said, why don't we get a band together for Mark? Because Mark, who's a music teacher, is always up playing by himself. And they had come up with this idea of a soiree, like a party to raise money. So the idea was that all these musicians are at the school. It's incredible.
And it's a way to support the school?
Way to support it. And so we put together this dad's band, and the first gig I did with him, it was a couple guys from the Iguanas, Cranston Clemens, who played with Dr. John. I mean, he's as good as anybody in town.
That's insane.
And it was like me, and none of the rest of the guys could read music. I couldn't read music, and I was hanging on by a thread. And it was, but it was this band that was really, really good. And so they kept it going, and we'd lose members and add members. And now it's more focused on they're playing all the time. I'm not in it.
But do they raise money for the school?
They do. They'll play at like stuff when they have a soiree or a benefit. We used to do it at Tips. By Adam. Did you pay your tab?
Great pork chops.
But they still do it, but I'm not a part of it. But Mark's doing it, and his kid now works at the Midway, so I'm sort of still connected. But it was
nice.
and the band was incredible. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, you know?
Man. Okay, so then you open up the Kingpin, and we just sort of skipped over, 10 years of that before you open up Midway? We'll get to that in a bit, but, one of the great bars in the city. Everybody loves, I love the Midway. I'm sorry, the Kingpin. And then you open up Midway, a year ago now, right? Year and a half ago?
About a year ago.
It was in the middle of a storm, wasn't it? It was in the middle of hurricane season, I remember.
It was the first weekend. It was I guess what it was, Isaac was supposed to be just a tropical storm, right? This one was, but it was a storm before. We opened on a Friday, and we had to get open. We had spent a year building the place out, and we had other investors in, and we were just worn down, and it was like we had to get open. We had to get money coming in the door because it's like we're at the end. You save all this money, and by the end, you're just doing. You've got your credit card going. You're paying for everything as you know.
Yeah, you did a lot of work on that space. That's a
lot
nice
of work.
Space, and that's in Frett Street that most people know was totally blighted and all that. You took a building there and just transformed it and all, and now you had to go. But then the storm came.
And the storm came, but we opened. And funny thing is, when we opened, it was like we had three guys in the kitchen, and this other guy, a friend of ours, Fine Dine and Dave, who had done helped us with the menu and the salads, and my special guest also helped with the menu. And we opened up, and I was like, just going 20 hours a day. And all of a sudden, I'm back in the kitchen like I'm 14, 15 years old again, at my dad's kitchen, where I'd done this forever. And it's like, I'm getting burnt on my arms. I'm pulling pizzas. I'm like, and it was maybe the third day because we had a party, but we opened that weekend, and right off the bat we were busy.
I was going to say, I drove by that night, and it was packed.
It was people were
I expected
excited.
to be closed because of the storm, and it was just packed out.
Well, I guess we owed everybody. It was like, I think everyone that we had done a favor for came through that weekend, and if it wasn't good, that was probably the last time they were going to come back. But it was nuts, and it was just like, I remember looking over at Ben, and I was like, I'm on the bench, and I was like, I mean, why? This is really a good idea. Like, we could be golfing right now. Why am I doing what? And it's been really and fast and furious since then. So it's been great.
Now it's deep dish pizza,
Right.
And I could be wrong, but I don't think. I mean, I've eaten in a few places in New Orleans, as you know, right? And,
Right.
And I don't think I've had any other deep dish pizza in the whole city. I mean, I think you might have been the first significant place to open up a deep dish place in the city.
Was that your original concept?
That's
and
well, the
what
pizza.
Is that what your
you-
parents do too?
That's
Do
the
they have
exact
deep
same
dish
pizza.
too?
So
Okay.
the dough and the sauce are the same recipe, and then we bring the sausage down, and a couple of the spinach cheese that's from them as well. But what I always went back home, and it's sort of loosely based on. It was a franchise in D.C., and it's basically they sort of tried to emulate Uno's a little bit.
Okay.
Because it wasn't the corn. It's not the cornmeal crust. I don't know if a lot of people like. As far as Chicago guys, there's a lot. It takes a long time to bake. And there's a lot of times there's more cornmeal. Sometimes people put the sauce on the top. Ours was the original concept was Chicago style in the D.C. area, and it was a new thing, and we didn't have that here. I've loved Reginelli's. I used to eat a fresco. I mean, when I say I used to, just because I'm eating, it's tough for me to get out.
I see you at Nino's. That's where
Ike loves Nina's, so we all love Nina's. But all the pizza here, I love, but they just didn't have that style.
Yeah, you're the only one.
And I was like, but I guess there's That's Amore, which I hear them on the radio, and there's another, but I've never been there. But as far as what we were doing, I was like, you know what? This is a different kind of pizza. It's something that's, it's always my favorite, but it's no knock on what's here now. Just
Right.
This is what I think.
It's different too. I mean, it's
different,
nothing
and it's
comparative.
not.
You don't have a
Yeah,
competitor really in that.
and it's not overwhelming. I mean, it isn't. I mean, it can wear you out. You eat a lot of it. It can fill you up. But at the same time, I thought it was like, if we can deliver what they do is like the freshest stuff. Everything we can make in house, we do, and go from there.
Yeah. Well,
Did you,
go ahead.
sorry. I was going to ask you, did you have any a hard time with the dough? I mean, because of the...
Right. That's a great question. That was our big worry was, in the midst of doing all this stuff, we, spent 8 months building the place out. We had the ovens. We got those. They're waiting for us in Hattiesburg. We about 3 weeks out, we're like, well, we got to start making the pizza. Like,
practicing the...
like if this is actually going to work, like what else? And Eric and some of our friends were like, well, the water, it's like because of the humidity, the different water, it's like there's whatever the levels in the water are on stuff. And so I was up. I'd done everything in the restaurant, but I'd never been in the prep room. So I went up back home about 6 months before I went through the whole thing with the prep room and made the dough, all this stuff. And we were able to. It was like I was nervous, but it was almost like it's like when you have a kid and your kid's 6 months old. You want to have a nervous breakdown, but you don't have enough time to have a nervous breakdown. Same thing with the dough. I was like, all right, this is going to happen. It's going to work. It's going to work. And if it didn't work, I'd deal with it then, right? So we got we nailed the sauce. The sauce is a special sauce that we get, and it was like it's there, The dough.
So that was taken care of.
The dough rose. The first day we did it, we bought the wrong yeast. We used an instant yeast instead of an active yeast. So that was a bit of a nightmare. The dough didn't rise. I was like, all right, let's try again tomorrow. Getting the oven temperatures because it's a different oven than my dad has. But we nailed it. And it was like, it's really, really good. And it took a few days to get it like how we're proofing it, how we're doing it. But we stuck pretty close to the way they did it, and it hasn't been that much different. I think ours is a little bit better, actually. I think that the way it's... But
I'll tell you something. I mean, I'm really open to all kinds of food, but I'm a snob about pizza. I grew up in an Italian community, in an Italian family in New York and New Jersey, and I was very particular about my pizza taste, right? It's like I like the New York style, like Nino's, or whatever.
Right.
And I only, I went there. I went to your place because I knew you're my friend, and because I had to knock it off my list and all that. I was trying to eat everywhere, And I got converted in the first slice. I mean, now I go to your place more for lunch than probably almost anywhere else in the city. I'm constantly going. I walk there from my house all a mile and a half every time to go. And I love it. But it converted me to deep dish pizza. I never liked deep dish pizza before. I went to Chicago last summer, and I ate everything but the deep dish pizza because I hate it usually.
Right.
But I love it now.
Well, that's you know what, that's nice of you to say. I'm glad you like. I mean, I find that it's not. I think it's just it's a little different version, but it's like it's good food. I mean, I eat it. I don't. I don't have to eat it, but I love eating it, and we find that it's like. I'm proud of it, and I'm glad you like it.
I want to talk to you. I want to keep talking about all this stuff, but we probably should introduce your friend because he's a worthy guest as well. So who do you have with you? Who's the mystery guest?
Well, my mystery guest is my great buddy Chef Eric, who runs who's in charge of Martinique Bistro, one of my favorite restaurants.
Awesome.
And he's also the creator of the Natty E pizza from the Midway and the Green Charter salad.
Did not know.
Thank you
and the
for
green.
joining
Oh
us.
yeah. Well, he knows I'm crazy for the salads. It's my favorite salad, and you never expect it at Midway. It just doesn't seem like the kind of place to have a fantastic salad, but it does. It's amazing. I mean, you got the great bar, you got the great pizza, and that's what you expect. But who knew you were going to have such a great salad?
Well, that's why we're bringing Eric here is to give us some street cred.
All right.
I had to get mine too.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, Martinique. I visited New Orleans. It's not about me, about you, but I visited. Just a little personal story. I visited New Orleans for the first time in my life. And, I'm never leaving this town, but I visited the first time in my life a week before Katrina.
Sure. The
second meal I had here, the first fancy meal I had here was at Martinique. And it was that day that when people say, when did you fall in love with New Orleans, because I'm really passionate about the city, I always say it was that day. And I think that meal played a part in it, at least the conversation, but also the food. And I live just a block and a half from there. My office is across the street. I eat at Martinique all the time. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite places in the city.
Yeah, it's a special place.
Easily.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean,
how do you guys know each other?
I met Steve maybe about 13 years ago. I moved to town. Coming to New Orleans was a natural progression for me, I guess. I'd been down here about 7 times for Jazz Fest, probably in the mid-'90s, and then
where were you living?
I was living at the time. My first trip down here I was in Vermont.
All right.
Yeah, and I
just like New Orleans, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's
kind of like Canada and New Orleans too, right? Yeah.
So a bunch of friends and us got in the car and we rolled down to New Orleans. First time in the deep South, and fell in love with it. Obviously, the Jazz Fest and then the food and the culture was great. So, in fact, after that trip, we made it a deal with our buddies. I am. Thank you. It was delicious. Tell me, ball was awesome.
Thank you.
Cheese fan.
Yes, indeed, meatball. But I got in the car and rolled down with some friends, and we made it a point right after that trip to book it again for the following year, and we kind of had the same friends come and go over the course of maybe 5 or 6 years, and then eventually I moved around a little bit. I ended up in North Carolina, running a 14-bedroom bed and breakfast, and then it was time to move, and it was sort of where do you want to move to? It was New Orleans was the vacation spot. Maybe we'll make it home.
That was fun.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a good one. It was I had my teeth in New Orleans already for a couple of years, and then it was kind of time to find a new vacation spot. So live in the one you love already. So yeah, it worked out great for me.
And you still love it?
Still love it. Yeah, I mean this is home now. It's pretty transient just as a chef. Moving city to city and then town to town, and over the course of years, and to make your mark and really stick around for a while was a good choice for me. It's like I said, it's 13 years into it. I don't think I'm going anytime soon.
So you've been here 13 years, and you've been at Martinique how long?
I've been at Martinique for right before the storm.
Okay, that's a pretty long time. You've been there 7 years or so.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and it's been great. I had when I moved to town, when I left the inn, I was here, didn't really know what to do. It's a pretty tough town. It's a culinary town. When you step into this place, there's a lot of big shoes around here to fill. So I took my time getting into it. And then Martinique was a restaurant that my friends had taken me to a bunch of times, and it was sort of a special place for birthdays, anniversaries, and that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, the opportunity, I was called on. They they had me on the wire and said, "Hey, listen, would you be interested in coming and doing this?" And I jumped at it. I mean,
all right.
It's one of those great places too, where I was given complete creative, ability to come up with whatever I wanted and
right off
take over.
right off from.
So that was the big jump. That's what every chef or anybody in the profession wants to do. So you want to do your own style and do your own food. And
Wow.
And then because I've been to Martinique a bunch of times, I knew what the feel of the joint was, and I wanted to stay true to kind of its French roots. Kind of keep it in that
And it started out with sort of a Caribbean thing going too.
Yeah,
for a while, right? It's
Hubert Sanda, who originally owned it, it was like kind of he had L'Economie downtown, and then he moved uptown, and it was kind of like an homage to his father, who was from Martinique, and his mother was from Paris. But so this was like his kind of big deal to show his dad, like, hey, it's more Caribbean, more in the style of New Orleans. And obviously French. That's where his roots were. So it was cool to kind of take over and kind of keep the same thing going on. I think now I've changed it a little bit where it's more like stay our French. I think for all the Francophiles in town, it's a good place to come.
What?
Francophiles. People into the French. New Orleans, you lose it sometimes. I think a lot of the food is it's based off of French food, but it's definitely more traditional Southern. It's really rootsy here. It's become its own style of food.
Right.
So to kind of do more on the French tip was kind of fun to kind of go back. I know it could be a little played out at some points, but it was it's good for the people who do come to town and say, hey, listen, man, I was just in Lyon, or I was in Paris, and your food is spot on, to where I just left, and that's great feeling, to have that.
So have you been to France before?
Yeah. I grew up in Belgium, and
You grew up in Belgium,
and my grandfather was from France.
Did you know that, Steve?
I'm learning things.
You look
here.
surprised.
Yeah, no.
Where's the accent, man?
Yeah.
No accent. I was a world traveler. I was actually born in Australia, and then moved to Belgium, and then back to the States after that.
So you guys are illustrating here one of my theories about New Orleans, what makes this city so great. I try to tell people what's so enchanted about this place, and I try to describe it from a bunch of different angles. I heard recently, it was a thing on John Lafitte, and it said this is a pirate city. It was started as a pirate city,
yeah.
And it was like a place of refuge for people from all over the place. And they were kind of people like you that were like adventurers,
Yeah.
So you're from Canada, you're bouncing all around the country with your dad and hockey, and you're Vermont and Australia and Belgium and whatever. And yet you come here and now you go, this is home. I finally found it. This is the place.
Right. It is.
I feel the same way.
It's great to actually, find that place too. After moving around, it was maybe it's the time of your life too, but it really is it's special. Yeah, it gets in you.
And there's also I've got to butt in for a second.
Yeah.
Eric is also a proprietor of a new establishment as well.
What's that?
It's have you heard it? It's on 1307 Lions in the Neutral Ground. It is the Tiki Bar, which has its own.
Right, it's the Uptown Tiki Bar.
Didn't hear about that.
That's you?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was a slow summer. Sort of right before the storm. Actually, it was before the storm. The good thing about the Tiki Bar, it's solid.
No cover.
No cover. It did go through a hurricane and rebounded back.
So wait,
true.
tell us about the concept, so that
That's
I'm not really
people
sure
don't
there's a
know.
concept behind it. I think it was more of a summer boredom and rolling around Uptown looking at scrap stuff, and it was great.
See, who says Uptown's not funky? Come on.
No, not at all. Yeah, well, that was kind of the deal. Yeah, and downtown people can pull off what they can do, but we're still doing Uptown as well.
It's a fantastic spot.
You don't have to be in the Bywater to be funky.
Oh, I
It's
know.
all over.
I fight that all the time. I'm so sick of hearing that. There's a couple blocks in Uptown that are tediously boring, but the rest of the neighborhood is fantastic.
I'm tired of that too.
It's fantastic.
I figured, it's a little spot outside the Kingpin.
Very romantic.
Very romantic.
Have you guys not seen it? It's
Yeah.
Oh yeah, too funny.
Yeah, tell our listeners about it though. I want to describe it for us.
Oh, the Tiki Bar is great. It's like your pretty much your traditional Tiki Bar, thatched. A lot of bamboo. Really what it was like
3 feet by 4 feet.
Yeah.
Would you be rolling out of the bar at night and you were like, this would be a good spot to
the neutral ground.
take cover?
Well,
Picture basically like a bamboo outhouse, right? That's about
exactly.
The size, right?
It's one of those places where we don't serve anything. You just go and you hang out there. It was I think it was back in when the 610 Stompers came through.
Yeah.
And they had a benefit outside the Kingpin where they had one of their pub crawls, and they brought all their stuff out there and they left the stage out there, and the stage kind of sat in neutral ground for a month or two, and I was looking at it, I'm like, is that thing ever going to go away? And I was like, well, can't we just bring other stuff out there then?
Yeah.
So why don't we build something else out there to go with the stage?
It's a community spot.
Exactly.
It's good timing now that the paper is not every day. That could be
that
where
neighborhood.
you get your news.
It's like in the
go
old
check
days,
out
yeah.
It's great. It's like a dog walking stops right by the yoga studio.
A lot of call and response.
Yeah. I hear it's it's got its own webpage or something like that.
It was a Facebook group. I saw a Facebook group about it.
You didn't do that?
I had nothing to do. I just built it, put it out there. I really thought the city would just tear it down or burn it or
I was like, and this is Eric. So Eric does the Tiki Bar. And I was like, I can tell you right now, the neighbors, who they're going to give shit to is me because this and I.
You're going to get blamed.
Because this thing's across the street. I was like, and so I remember I was like, said something to Kay. I was like, okay. So we started teasing. I was like, as soon as one of the neighbors calls, like, I'm going to call Eric and he can move the thing out. And it's chained up to a tree. Right? So no neighbors have called. Every time I go to the bar to get something, there's somebody. I went there tonight to pick up Eric. There's two people out there just like, sweet nothings to each other over
having
the
a romantic
Tiki Bar.
moment.
Tiki Bar, and it literally, like he says, it stands a test.
Children have been conceived in the Tiki Bar, I'm sure.
And then
people go out there do their work.
You could not predict
this. You would think that people would.
Then, exactly, and then you think that people would whatever they want to do with it. But the Tiki Bar is taken off to the point that and I think we can talk about this. We did. Anthony Bourdain did his show, The Layover.
Yeah.
And we can say it now because it's in, right?
Yeah, I think it's.
So they filmed it in. They came and did with Donald Link, brought him to Snake and Jake's, and brought him to the Kingpin.
Nice.
So they call ahead and they're like, "Don't tell anybody," because he doesn't want it. It's like if it's crowded, he'll be uncomfortable. He won't want to film. So we're all excited. It's like Bourdain's coming. My mother's going crazy. She's like, Anthony Bourdain, he's the sexiest guy. This guy chain smokes and drinks all the time. And I hadn't seen the show. Yeah, and she's like, he's so hot. She's like your dad. He's hot. I was like, all right. So in the midst of the
when can I meet your parents? I'm dying to meet your parents. Please tell me next time
they're coming to town. Yeah. So in the middle of all this, they're coming to town. Bourdain's coming on Sunday night. We had to get Alex. We had to get the taco truck there so they had something to eat.
Yeah.
So Link texts me. He's like, "We're on our way. We're on our way." And I look out, and the whole fucking Tiki Bar is packed with people. And I'm like, if they come in and pull off, and it was like, I was laughing at myself. But what are the odds that he doesn't even come in the Kingpin and hangs out at the Tiki Bar? And that's on the way. But I think the Tiki Bar made it. He came in and filmed the Kingpin. And I have to think that when he walked out and left, it was like the Kingpin, the taco truck, the Tiki Bar. You really can't do much better than that.
It really was a good. It was a good neighborhood Uptown moment going on.
So and it naturally evolved. It's not. It doesn't sound like you couldn't make a spot, a hangout, something.
Right.
It's like people feel like they must feel like they discovered it, and the neighbors.
Sure.
It's like hanging out on your stoop or something, and
very kid friendly.
Yeah. Dog friendly, kid friendly. Yeah.
Yeah, some of our listeners that aren't from New Orleans aren't even know what neutral ground is. You should tell them what neutral ground is. There's actually signs. There's folks. There are street signs that say, don't park in the neutral ground. That puts parentheses median. Like it has to explain it to you, on the street sign what it is. But yeah, I think the legend says it came from when the French and the French became Americans unwillingly in New Orleans, the Louisiana Purchase, and they resisted for a very long time. They were in denial. My wife's family didn't start speaking English till 2 generations ago. And neutral ground was where the Anglos and the French we could meet and not fight,
Right, yeah, it's a safe space. Safe space. It's green space.
But it's all these little green spots all around the city that get so much use. You see in different neighborhoods, they have a different character, and people set up stuff. And some neighborhoods just milk crates turned over that they sit on, but,
I love it on Claiborne. In the middle of busy streets, people have their crates and their chairs.
They're having barbecues out there. They're having family reunions out there.
Well, I remember that neutral ground that you're talking about, the Tiki Bar from the Roller Girls had a set up in front of the Kingpin. One of the first Roller Girl bouts I went to about 2008 or so. They were set up out there doing a car wash or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, how could I not stop? It's a bunch of Roller Girls in shorts, washing cars. And okay, I got to go there.
I mean, I'll tell you, to this day, one of my favorite memories is that after Katrina, everything was shut down, and we had the Pussyfooters would practice out front on Sundays. And they're like, do you mind if we use the neutral ground? They still do it now. And I remember we were sitting there, and it was like, it was a real strange time. And it was probably I guess November. We were outside, and we would have the football games. We'd be barbecuing. The Pussyfooters would be out front in the medium practicing. And then this woman, Cree McCree, Creative Flea, who does all the
It's art markets, right?
the art markets before they've taken off. They started doing the Kingpin flea market, and it was like,
I mean, we're talking about a space that's what, like 50 by 20, 50 by
50 by 20,
15?
and then it's also 50 by 10 if you take away all the dog crap.
Yeah. I mean, it's just insane.
But yeah, I remember sitting there, and it wasn't like it's something that I'd foster, but I was just like, God, to be a part of this. I was like, this is really cool, you know? And I mean, I guess it helped with a few drinks, but it was like, wow. And so that neutral ground.
Well, I think the Kingpin's
it's
cool
good
like that.
for
It's got a front yard. Right. I mean, not all the bars have a front yard. You know?
Right. That's a good thing.
Well, maybe it's just a good time to take a break for the grab bag. What do you think? Let's do that.
Okay, sure. So this is kind of a ripoff on that cooking show, Chopped. But we are going to have y'all pick out of the Rouse's grab bag our beautiful Rouse's items that we purchased today.
Our favorite,
And you stick your hand in the bag and you pull
Shop
out
local.
3, yes, please. And you pull out 3 items and we see if, just off the cuff, if you can come up with some kind of
dish.
dish with.
What about,
right.
are we on right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a
I get
serious
3 of
question.
these?
Is the hamburgers going to be cooked until 10 o'clock? 'Cause they
Midnight.
smell so good. Oh,
Midnight.
okay, perfect.
Oh,
Then
yeah.
okay,
You
good.
hungry? We can.
No, I'm going to wait till I finish, but it
All right.
smells so
Meatball's back
good.
there.
in
Doing
here.
a great job.
All right, so I'm in on this.
Do you guys know
Yep.
Meatball?
I know Meatball, yeah.
Okay.
How do I know?
know.
I don't know Meatball.
You
I
might
have
have
met
met
Meatball
Meatball
comes
from
into-
until tonight.
We have a kid that comes into the.
He sounds like he's going to be a great guest. So
So
we
I take
get
3 of
Meatball one day
these?
too.
Yeah, he's got one.
I got
so
one.
pull out 2 more,
So it's going to
and
be.
and you read it, and
I'm ready to
you,
read it.
Okay, you can read it.
I've got.
Eric, since you're
I can read. Here we go.
a chef,
I've got shrimp.
shrimp.
And Steve, you got tamarind and sugarcane.
So
like
can
a
you come up
pizza.
with something really quick using those 3 ingredients?
Yeah, you can definitely do
What
a-
would you do?
Well, I mean, you got shrimp, tamarind, and sugarcane. You could definitely do like a lacquered shrimp, tamarind sauce. I mean, that's skewer it up.
That's why you bring the mystery guest.
All right,
ready
there
to
you
go.
go.
Is
All right, next Monday.
Tamarind's like a, it's like a Indonesian or like it's equator.
But it's like a green herb as well.
No, it could be like a sweet and spice too.
Okay.
Kind of tastes like sweet tart. It comes in a shell.
It comes in a shell. It's like almost like a bean.
Why don't you have the other stuff they have on like Chopped, where it's like shoestring, eggshell.
There were some like that. We were gonna. No, they're not.
Piece of chain.
All right,
They're not that great.
Rusty chain.
All right, ready? Here we go. I'm gonna quiz you guys. Okay, ready?
No, I don't cook.
Yeah, but here we go.
Oh yeah.
I just
All
like
right, we're gonna go
listening to y'all.
prosciutto,
Yep.
anisette, and. You ready?
Here's the big one.
Okay, prosciutto. We can get rid of anisette because I don't know if I.
I don't know
No,
what.
it's all right. I can do it.
Prosciutto, bitters, and
And that is that.
calamari.
And calamari. Okay, here's what I do. I take those ingredients and I drive over to Eric's house. and I let
that.
him cook something with it because I'll mess
Not
it up.
first, yeah.
And then you've
He
got.
sleeps till noon.
And then the last one is this will help you Reformation.
Is that what it says?
Yep. So you got to. What are you gonna put Reformation on top, or how are you gonna do that?
Oh man! All right. Well, this is why I go to places and buy things to eat. Well, tell me, like, what is it? Are you at the Kingpin anymore now? I mean,
I'm not
I haven't
there
seen
that
you the
often.
last couple times I've been over there.
No,
You're
it's
probably
more-
mostly at Midway, right?
Mostly Midway. We've had the same. We've been really lucky with. We've probably had our crew that's been there. Kate, my girlfriend's been there since we first opened. But it's probably the same 7 or 8 people. It's like family that.
Right.
They treat it like their own. It basically the reason why people keep coming in there is because when Ben and I stopped bartending, we realized it was good for business. They have a great following. They're just wonderful people, and it's we're really lucky to have them. So Ben and I basically take credit, I guess, or but it all has to do with them. The people that are there, and it's one of those places where. It's the personalities that come in feed off the personalities. It becomes this sort of holistic
It's
thing.
definitely been a family thing. I mean, I walked in those doors like 12 years ago. I mean, right when you guys opened.
Right.
I mean, I lived like right down the neighborhood.
Right.
And, friends were like, hey, this new bar's opening up, and these guys who had the Bulldog or used to work down there, are like, it's a great new bar. It's close to your house. Like, you should go in and check it out. It really was. It was like, and the same people are still there today.
Yeah.
Has it always been sort of Elvis themed too? You got a lot of Elvis stuff.
Well, that was like.
I'm the crew of the Rolling Elvi. I'm an Elvis fan too.
Oh,
I know
yeah,
you
the
are.
Rolling Elvi, take it because that used to be. But what happened was we called it the Kingpin. We couldn't think of a name. We had all these names. The same thing with the Midway, and you come up with all these names, and it's all. I swear, 90% of them have like a negative sexual connotation. Like it's like it was going to be the tin like. And it all goes back to some bad skin flick or something. You're like, wow, this means something else. And we had, and then it was like the Kingpin. You can't think anything bad about the Kingpin. It was like, think of negative. Couldn't do it. So did the Kingpin, then people started bringing. I mean, I love Elvis. We'd have an Elvis night. People started bringing Elvis shit right off the bat.
Really? Okay.
So it's like the King, and then we get bowling stuff, but then we get bowling pins, and you can't. We didn't used to have a shelf, so the bowling pins would fall. It's like, why do we have the bowling pins?
Right.
But people started bringing the Elvis stuff, and then we did more kitschy stuff with when we did the back room. We made like the jungle room. That was sort of the idea.
Right. Yeah.
And the Midway was the same thing with the name. We had like all these names. We thought we could. It was like, it was Chicago. Like we had. I don't want to say it but like names. It was like, oh, this sounds great. This sounds great.
Why don't you want to say it?
Well, because the names only ones I can think of right now, besides the Midway, are all. You'll realize when I say it that why we didn't use the names.
Are they nasty?
No, they not at all nasty, but they can rhyme with something. It's like you just find.
It's like that Seinfeld episode.
Yeah, you're like you couldn't find anything. But the Midway was the same idea, and our friend was like, because we were going to call it Icos at first.
Dolores.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was.
Wait, what rhymes with it? Say it again.
Remember from the Seinfeld? Do you remember the Seinfeld episode? He didn't want to date anybody whose name rhymed with like a sex organ or whatever.
Right,
so
yeah.
remember, so it's like Dolores and Mulva and.
Oh, okay. It took me a second to figure out what it was rhyming with. Okay, go ahead.
Right.
Move
So
on.
anyway, so with
Sorry.
the Midway,
This is a family show.
But the Midway was the same thing. A friend of ours came with a name
it's
and
not.
said the Midway, and it was like, boom, like the Midway. And we were like, oh, that's like Chicago Midway. And then it was like Midway. He was thinking more of like the amusement park, like the Midway. Remember, like you go in, it was like the Midway.
Oh.
And it was like innocuous. It's like, you know what? That's Midway, Uptown, Downtown, catchy. And it was like, we had that, and we had that sign. The logo is from that sign that was on Broad Street next to the jail. There's like that Legion sign that's been there forever. It's gone now. And I went and took a picture of it. It was always for sale. It was like the local carpenter union. And I was like, the sign looks good. We couldn't afford neon, but with the Midway fit in there, so we did.
Wow. Well, I love that. I love the whole vibe there too. It's just so kind of crisp and interesting.
Right, and I
got
should.
the whole.
I'm going to cut you off again, but I got to tell you that because we're Eric is when we did the restaurant, we were so excited because these guys that we've all hung out with are like the best cooks in town. It's like Eric. We have friends in Patois for every restaurant. And they seem buddies, and it was like it's like, can you help us out? And Eric was right at the get-go. Another friend of ours had opened another restaurant with us that didn't do so well. This guy, we call him Fine Dining Dave, who used to be at Commanders and ran Giacomo's, was like, what's up, new Mike? What was the greatest job you ever had?
Midway, man.
There you go.
Random customer here. This is amazing.
New Mike worked at the Midway, and he's a family friend. And we've had a lot,
New Mike.
Well, that's what we call him because there's old Mike.
It's old Mike.
New Mike came in, and New Mike was like, and I've been waiting for the shoe to fall because I'd work for my parents, and all my friends would work, and they'd all get fired because they wouldn't show up. And New Mike was the first family friend that didn't, his third time not showing up to work. I was like, New Mike, you got to come.
So you fired the guy. The guy who just walked into Ted's,
Still referred to
got
as
a
New
burger,
Mike.
and just
New Mike.
walked out just now with somebody you
Favorite
fired.
place well, it didn't really
and he
fire.
still loves you.
We didn't say fire because you can't fire anybody anymore because then you have the unemployment situation.
Right.
New Mike
asked him
New Mike is taken off the schedule
You're
for a couple weeks.
off the schedule. I love
Take it
it.
off the schedule.
Right, and I'm cutting you off, and I know that we can run into time, but the thing is that I was going to say is that these guys nailed the green charter, which was one of my favorite salads. I used to have that crab salad at Martinique, and he's like, I got a recipe you could use, and different ideas on how to do stuff. And our friend Fine Dine and Dave, who was in charge of, he came up with the caprese. I mean, it's basically
That's really
caprese,
good.
but with the balsamic. His idea with the garlic
spread,
the garlic spread on the baguettes.
Yeah.
And his recipe for which you like the house salad a lot.
I love the house salad.
And
I'm
the
crazy
spinach
for
salad.
it.
And that was his recipe. And they're like, that's something that it's like we were really lucky to have him come in and be like, we're not going to do the salads like, it's not going to be just a shitty pizza place.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, usually you get this, kind of iceberg.
I mean,
It's
I
like
love
kinda wilted by the
$1,000
day with right, $1,000.
I
Well,
wanna
a lot of times you go to
know-
the pizza places, it's always like whatever in the pizza bin. It's like, hey, it's just like my pizza except on lettuce.
I want to
man,
know
we're-
the
okay,
first
go.
time your dad came in.
Okay.
And what he.
Oh,
were you
yeah.
proud? And what did he think?
You must have been
when he
so
came
nervous.
in today?
They came in before we opened. He had come in. They'd come in before we opened and seen the play. It's like he totally tried. Whatever. But it was like helped me a lot. But when we the first weekend, I was like, "Don't come this weekend." Like let's get through this. Unless you want to get in the kitchen with me, 'cause it's like,
You've already seen this go
I mean, at
down.
that point, you're just exhausted, and it's like the only people you're taking out on is your family. It's like the only people you can. But he came in, and what was really cool is that we had we named a pizza after him. So when we first did the menu, we were like, okay, let's come up with like specialty pizzas. And I called him and said, we're naming a pizza after you. What do you want on it? He's like, the combination. So I was like, what do you want to call it? And he's like, I said, give me your favorite hockey number. So that's the number 18, which is his.
Oh, I remember you telling me this.
And then,
Yeah.
we named him after a couple of people that worked there. But he came in, and he was really great. Like, they're totally supportive and fantastic. And Ben's parents came in as well. And we were like, it was like a Friday night, busy. It was really good. And he really liked the pizza. And he got in the kitchen and was like doing, it was like with the guys. And he was really, was there in the morning time. Because he wanted to hang out with we have like a couple Latinos that work with us. We have Roger from Nino, who's like,
Oh, yeah.
been the
Love
savior.
Roger.
Oh, he's the greatest.
He
He's
rocks. I
our dough
love that guy.
It's like, so it was like, so Bugs is there in the morning, and he's outside, and he's impatient. So he comes in, and he's out like sweeping the front of the building. And, well, you got to make it look clean. And all this. I said, well, Dad.
Is your dad sweeping out there?
Yeah, he's sweeping because he couldn't. It was like like the fact that he was standing still, he couldn't go with
Nervous
it.
energy,
And all
yeah.
I'm doing is smoking cigarettes. I'm like, I'm not going out there right now. And he was like, then he came in, and he was telling the one person what to do. It was fantastic. It was
Awesome.
But they loved it, and they liked it so much because we do a meatball thing, a couple other special pizzas they don't have. They're just more basic. So they've taken the Thunderbird, they've changed the name to the Ico, and they've taken the pigs in the blanket up there.
Nice.
And they're doing the meatballs. Well, but they do sliders and stuff like that, which we're not.
Right.
That craze is sort of has been here, and it's slower to get there. So they're
Right.
excited about that. But he was really
That's got to be
happy.
so cool. Your dad's
And I was,
copying you now, too. I mean,
Well,
you're
no, I mean,
copying your
it's-
dad. Now he's using some of your stuff.
He's
but-
allowed to copy. I owe him a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have to pay.
Man, well, we're running
I
out
didn't
of
have to
time. We
pay
only
the
got like
recipes.
5 more minutes. I got like a couple more stories and questions to ask you. Okay,
Okay.
so first of all, so first couple of years I knew you a little bit. I'd be walking down Magazine Street. I'd hear you yell out Andrew's name, or I'd look up and I'd always see you driving around in your orange truck,
Canada, yeah.
Yeah, now that's an open top vehicle, but didn't always used to be, right? Didn't you cut the roof off of that yourself?
You can take the roof off. It was an International Scout. I still have it. It's going to be featured in a CenturyLink commercial.
That's right, yeah.
It's got
I know about that, yeah.
Yeah. So, but the top. What happened was the car. That was my only car I had. Ike's mom was like, "I cannot believe this is going to be your primary car." I was like, "It's safe." I had to mount seat belts, and I put Ike in this little chair in it, and it was gold, and that was it. And when I evacuated for Katrina, I was like, I made a decision when I got back. I was like, I need to get another car.
You evacuated.
But I paid $900 for it.
Going through a Category 4 hurricane with no
Right.
top was like kind of difficult for
it
you?
had a top thing. But then what happened was I had to get a new car, and then last year, or I guess 2 years ago, I was driving. I wouldn't drive that much unless it was night. It's like I was driving and someone ran into me. I was like, come on. So they didn't have insurance. I had insurance, and with those old cars now, you can get the insurance is $100 a year. So the thing had paid for itself. The guys gave me money. They didn't have insurance. My insurance paid for it. Gave me money. I got it painted. So it was like this orange paint job.
Yeah.
But
That's
I
good,
didn't.
yeah.
But I didn't want. They had worked on it over at this place for so long And I was like, well, I want to paint it blue. And they're like, no. And I was like, they've done all this. I was like, well, you paint it whatever color you want to paint it. Get it home. And Kate and I
You just told them to paint whatever color they wanted.
Whatever.
I almost let that go. That's crazy. Okay,
well,
keep
but
going.
it was like, it's hot orange or something. And now it looks like every orange taxi in town. That's okay.
Right.
That's like saying to the hospital, like, just name my baby whatever you want. Like, it doesn't matter, my kid.
Just go
like,
to
you
it.
can't just have somebody paint your car a random color.
Well, it was
your primary vehicle.
Yeah, well, at this point,
modified primary vehicle.
I primaried it, and so I still have the car. I got it in. Kate and I bought a house that had a garage that shouldn't fit any car, and I got the car. The car fits in without the top by like an inch and a half. And Kate's like,
so if you fill the tires up with too much air,
that's a problem.
Yeah, you can't get.
The other problem is that because the downstairs is connected with the stairs. Kate's like, you can't drive the car in because it makes the whole house smell. So I have to now push it. I have to push the car in and pull the car out. I don't have a top and I don't have windshield wipers, so I can't drive it in the rain or anything. But recently someone called me and they said, we've got this ad. We want to use your car, a friend of mine, for this commercial. I was like,
commercial.
And that's what I didn't know. It's CenturyLink. I was out in Denver. So I was like, man, this is a big company, CenturyLink. You know. So I got $500. I had to get the car out to Veterans. Out to Sylvester's cowboy boot place. This is 2 months ago. It's pouring down rain. I have no windshield wipers. The brake tag is completely expired. I don't have a license. I mean, I'm like,
don't try this at home, kids.
And you're going into Jefferson Parish. They're serious over there.
I'm
They don't
thinking to
let things
myself
go.
with the thing raining, like, and I was like, this friend of mine was going to follow me out, and they were going to come pick it up, and I was like, and the guy was like, we really need it for this commercial. I was like, all right, I'll get it out there. And I'm thinking while I'm driving in my raincoat on Earhart Boulevard with it pouring down rain, and I'm with no windshield wipers looking at the side with the top off, like if a police, officer saw me, would he just like, you're so stupid, I have to pull you over?
Yeah.
I made it there, dropped it off, got home, and I got $500, and so hopefully it's going to be a movie.
And it'll be immortalized.
It'll be immortalized.
And you can, when you retire that car, you'll.
What's the company? What's
so
it
that's
for?
what I said. I didn't know it was CenturyLink. They're like,
what is that?
They're like a big telecom place. Like CenturyLink is like Cox Cable.
So why'd they want your car?
Because they filmed everything here, and they're doing a retro.
Oh.
So it's at that Sylvester's Western place, and they made it on there. The car.
I'm so glad I asked you that question. That's so much better answer than I ever expected.
I know. I
thought we were just going to get to a story about how you took a
International
chainsaw
Scout.
one day, you got mad at your car, and you cut off the top.
It's still there.
Wow, okay.
I'm not ready for y'all to go yet. We got a few more questions we got to get in
we
there.
can-
If y'all, because I heard you mention Kate.
Right.
Now, she must be a pretty special lady
Yes.
to put up with somebody that owns a bar
Right.
and a restaurant. I mean, it's hard enough to meet.
And
Yeah.
and
To have a
car.
relationship with someone
Like you
in a
just
car
said.
that stinks up a house.
Right,
and that
right.
I don't.
We're all trying to figure that out because Kate is everybody's favorite, my favorite, and at some point we're wondering if she when is she going to wake up and realize
Come to her senses.
Have the full meltdown.
right? She has a lot of patience, and
Apparently.
but she also works very hard. So she's at the Kingpin. She's a welder.
I was going to say, I heard she's a builder too, right?
Yeah, so it's her and the two other artists, and they make fences while in the meantime making sculptures. So she's very busy, so that's probably why it works, so that she doesn't have to see. And Ike and I have
really
been on.
tired.
Yeah.
She's busy all day, and you're busy all day and night.
Right.
So
But we spent a lot of time together, and she's been great. It's been really cool having all of us live together, so it's been lots
Wow.
of fun.
All right, I'm gonna tell another story, Steve. Unless you got enough.
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right. So one of my
interrupt
first
if I have
encounters
to.
with you, every single time I'm around you, there's something amazing happens. But early on, I'm out at Herb Saint, Donald Link's place. As you know, high end kind of place, and you're usually dressed like me. You're kind of in t-shirts, like a biker hat or something, and jeans and whatever. And I walk into Herb Saint. I dig out my one pair of khakis I have or whatever for that place, for lunch and a nice shirt. I go in. And I see you walking around, and you're in like a sweater vest, and it's like gold, and you had like on plaid pants,
Like gold and black pants.
gold and black plaid pants, and you're already, bombed, if I could say that, like at lunchtime. Yeah, you were hammered at lunchtime, and I didn't know what was going on, but you were practicing a song that I'd never heard before. You had written, I think.
Right. That was.
And and then I got bits and pieces of the story, and then the waiters were kind of all rolling their eyes about you guys. But I guess once a year you rent out the back room. Is that what it is?
What happens? It's that's actually one of the That's a wonderful memory because it's going to maybe make me tear up here. No, what happens is that's why we're friends with Link is that a great buddy of mine, Chris Hunter, who Eric knows, in charge of Purveyor Fine Wines. He once a year we all ride on the float together. So Link's on Donald's on the float with
which crew is that?
Crew of Toad. So it's Donald.
Toad.
So this year was Donald.
It's right in front of my house.
So it's Donald Link. It's like the who's who. Brian from Clancy's.
Fine dining.
Fine dining, but no, we have two other big time cooks on it. It's like hilarious.
So what unites you? The Saints.
So the
drinking?
Saints, so that we all get together at Herb Saints. So they would do. So that year was this annual Saints brunch, which Donald comes to, or we also have a Toth meeting. So we don't really run out the back. Chris brings all this wine, and we all they just keep bringing food to us, right? And so Donald's there, and it's like, but all these guys. I was always a Redskin guy. And this was my first year because the Redskins, I went to the Super Bowl. I was like nuts about them. But I couldn't, this is the year after the Saints had won the Super Bowl. I had to cleanse myself of the Redskins in the right way to become a Saints fan. So
it's like a baptism for you.
This is exactly like I should have been at the Redeemer Church talking to you about So we wear this stuff. So we come in and Hunter's got all this wine, food. So everyone tells like a story because I sat through the last 2 years of it, just being a neutral guy, and the stuff that was coming to these guys was like they'd bring a slideshow, like football, like the '69 draft. And so this year
they'd bring a slideshow of the '69 draft.
No, they're it would be like written out, like it'd be trivia. It was like right out of the movie Diner. I was like, these guys are off their fucking rocker, and I was like, I got to come up with something good. And this is no shit. We were laughing. I saw something we had before I went on. It was like these children, like everyone has kids. Everyone's doing their own thing. To a T, 3 of the 6 guys said that the Super Bowl is the greatest day of their life. Like, doesn't matter. Don't tell my wife this is the greatest day of my life. So I've got this song. So I've got to sing. So I was like, well, what I'm going to do is I'd like to make a toast. And before I talk about the Saints, I have to thank the Redskins for everything. So it's like I made a toast to like, here's to the Redskins. Here's to I'll always hate the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
And then I sang "Hail to the Redskins" one last time, and then I sang my new song, which was Drew and Brittany. In the season, the mighty season, Drew and Brittany. So that was my song. And then now I've been a lifelong Saints fan after that.
Man, so that was like your conversion. That was
my conversion. Yeah, that was it, man.
Wow.
It was like my reformation.
I never heard the song before. I love it.
Man, well, it looks like we're out of time. Maybe we can have you on again. This was awesome. Do you have anything else?
Well, I did want to ask them
the book question.
The book of questions. This was very popular
in
the 80s.
Probably going to take half of our stuff out anyway, huh?
And I don't... Okay, pick a number between 1 and 217.
The FCC will make us.
What's your favorite number between... Okay, your favorite number between 1 and 217.
137.
137.
You remember this book from the 80s?
I remember that book, yeah.
Yes, very 80s.
Okay. Do you find it so hard to say no that you regularly do favors you do not want to do? If so, why? Do you have a hard time saying no?
Yeah, no. I actually have the opposite. I always say yes to everything, I think. And then I get myself in a lot of trouble for it. Hence, I'm here right now.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Let's... Are you willing to do this? All right. 1 and 217.
Oh, yeah. I got to do... I'll do 122.
I thought you were going to do your dad's number.
18. No? All right. If you were happily married and then met someone you felt was certain to always bring you deeply passionate, intoxicating love, would you leave your spouse? What if you had kids? Is that too heavy of a question?
That may be too heavy of a question. Because I don't think you would, right? I mean, like, whatever, passionate. You got to find your own passion. right? So you got passion. You got passion.
Give him another one.
Okay, 18.
Yeah, just something. You got like.
get
What if you're like a
Some of
coconut?
these are so
Do you
weird.
want to be a coconut or like?
These are so intense.
If you what if you ran into Bigfoot? Would you take a picture or?
Or would you
Right.
have him eat deep dish?
Right.
Okay. If you could wake up tomorrow having gained any one ability or quality, what would it be?
Lose weight.
There you go. Thank you
was
very
fast.
much.
Sounds good.
All right.
That was easy.
Well, thanks
Right on.
thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks a lot for having us. Yeah.
It was so good to have you here. That's been our show for tonight. Thanks for joining us. Our special guest has been Steve Watson and Steve Watson's plus one, Eric Labouchere. Margot and I produced the show ourselves with very little help from anyone except for Mitch Cry, our technical director. Now, you can get in touch with us at Midnight Menu Plus One by going to our website, itsneworleans.com. itsneworleans.com. You can tweet us. We're at It's New Orleans. And you can like us on Facebook, where we're also It's New Orleans. Or you can go to our website. Guess what? It's called itsneworleans.com. Or you can sign up our mailing list, itsneworleans.com. You can listen to other episodes of Midnight Menu Plus One, as well as our other great New Orleans shows, Happy Hour, Mindset, True to the Game, and Out to Lunch. Now, if you've listened to the show on iTunes, thanks for subscribing. Maybe you can take a minute to rate and review us. That helps other people to find us. Midnight Menu Plus One is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsneworleans.com. Till we meet again here at Ted's Frost Top, I'm Ray Canada.
And I'm Margot Moss. See you next week on Midnight Menu Plus One.
Bye-bye.
You know Labor Day signals the unofficial end of summer, but not the end of your outdoor projects. Lowe's helps you do it right and helps you save with Labor Day deals throughout the store. Shop now and get 2 bags of Stay Green Potty Mix for $12. And keep your lawn looking neat and trim with a Craftsman 2-cycle 17-inch gas string trimmer, now $20 off at just $119. Whatever's still on your to-do list this Labor Day, do it right for less. Start with Lowe's. Offers valid through 8/28. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. U.S. only.